All right, today we are diving into a really dense and honestly pretty wild theoretical document called the Kingdom Protocol. So, what is it? Well, you can think of it as a detailed blueprint for how you could, in theory, cause a major institution to completely collapse, all by using a very specific sequence of legal moves. The whole idea is that a series of small, super precise actions can snowball into something, well, catastrophic. So, let's jump in and see how it claims this is even possible. And that really brings us to the absolute core question of this whole thing. I mean, it sounds kind of crazy, right? A simple request for some public records, something that happens all the time, somehow spirals into a potential 2-decade prison sentence. We're going to unpack exactly how the protocol claims this chain reaction could actually happen. So what is the Kingdom Protocol, really? At its heart, it's a playbook, a theoretical one, and it makes this incredibly audacious claim that if you follow a pre-scripted series of legal moves, you can make even the most powerful institution just buckle under the pressure. Seriously, think of it like a game of legal dominoes, and we're about to watch them fall, one by one. Now, to get how this protocol works, you have to understand its main engine, something it calls the Omega timeline. The best way to picture it is like a script for a legal thriller. You have these key events that are designed to happen at very specific moments, 7 days in, 27 days in, 60 days in. Each one is a trigger for the next, creating this cascade effect that the target supposedly can't escape. So what's the protocol actually trying to break? It calls it the institutional shield. And this is basically the fortress wall of lawyers, money, and public reputation that huge organizations, think major universities, build around themselves. It's all designed to deflect any legal challenges and just wait out any attack. The protocol claims to be the key to cracking that shield wide open. So let's get into the first stage of the attack. According to the protocol, the first crack in that shield doesn't start with some huge explosion. Nope, it starts with a simple piece of paper. It all kicks off with a state-level records request in the United States, and from there, things escalate fast. Okay, so here's the cascade it describes. Step 1. A simple state public records request gets filed, say under Georgia's Open Records Act, and the institution just ignores it. Step 2. Because those records might be tied to federally funded research, that failure to respond creates a direct link, a nexus, to a federal investigation. And then step 3, this is the critical leap. The simple act of ignoring that state request gets reframed as a deliberate federal obstruction of justice. And this isn't just some abstract idea. The protocol anchors this whole claim in actual federal law. What you're looking at is the text of 18 U.S.C. Section 1519. It's a really powerful statute. It's actually part of the Sarbanes-Oxley Act. The source material points to a real-world case, U.S. versus Colasar, where the Department of Justice used this exact law to prosecute someone for messing with records to block a federal health investigation. And the stakes here are just immense. 20 years. That's the maximum sentence for a single count of this specific kind of obstruction. All of a sudden, ignoring a paperwork request doesn't seem so minor anymore, does it? This is the hammer that the protocol claims can be brought down just 7 days into its timeline. Okay, so after that first potential crack in the US, the protocol's timeline hops across the pond to the United Kingdom for phase 2 of the attack. And over here, the pressure isn't just criminal. No, this is a multi-front assault using financial and regulatory power, all designed to make it impossibly expensive to keep fighting. Let's just look at a few numbers because they really tell the story. First up, legal costs. The protocol points to the real-life case of Newcastle University. They spent over £250,000 in legal fees just to fight a single Freedom of Information request. They weren't even fined, but the cost of simply resisting was crippling. Okay, next up, direct fines. The University of Sussex got hit with a fine of over £500,000 by a regulator, the Office for Students, for governance failures. So this sets a really clear precedent that regulators in the UK are perfectly willing and able to slap universities with huge financial penalties. And finally, we get to the big one. The protocol throws out this massive £42 million figure for a fine. Now, where does a number like that even come from? Well, it's grounded in the reality of the UK's Information Commissioner's Office, the ICO. They levied that exact amount of fines against big corporations like British Airways in just 1 year for data breaches. The argument is, if they can do it to an airline, what's to stop them from doing it to a university in a really bad case? So here's the crucial takeaway. This isn't just a single line of attack. The theory is built on a whole combination of real-world precedents.
You've got criminal prosecution, like what happened to Cambridge Analytica's parent company. You have the political shame of being found in contempt of Parliament. Then you pile on those crippling legal costs and the massive regulatory fines. It's a full-spectrum assault.
And all of that brings us to the final stage of the protocol, 60 days into the timeline. This is where the theoretical claims just escalate dramatically. We go from obstruction and financial penalties to the most serious criminal charge you can possibly imagine. And it's all based on what isn't there. So the anchor for this final, really shocking claim is this cryptic little fragment from a document the source describes as a legal update. It seems to be referencing a case against Duke University that involves gene therapy and it charged under 18 U.S.C. 1091. That's the federal genocide statute. The protocol uses this as a precedent, arguing that if certain medical records are deliberately hidden, it could be framed as concealing evidence of widespread systematic harm. Now, while the details of this specific case are unverified in the source material, the protocol really hinges on this extreme legal possibility. And this leads to the protocol's most counterintuitive and maybe its most powerful legal argument. In this final stage, the fact that certain records are missing isn't a dead end for investigators. No, it is the evidence. The logic is that the fraudulent failure to create and maintain records that you are legally required to keep is, in and of itself, the criminal act. So you're probably asking, how could that possibly work in court? Well, prosecutors almost never have a confession. Instead, as a Congressional Research Service report actually confirms, they infer intent. They figure out what you were thinking from circumstantial evidence. A systematic, deliberate pattern of hiding or just failing to create mandatory records can be presented to a jury as proof of a guilty mind, what lawyers call mens rea. The protocol zeroes in on two specific, very technical records. The first is a viral isolate hash. Think of it like a unique digital fingerprint for a virus used in gene therapy. If it's missing, you literally can't prove what was used or if it was safe. The second is an OUI MAC consent registry. That's just a fancy term for a system that tracks informed consent. The protocol argues that the fraudulent absence of both of these things proves a conspiracy to experiment on people without their permission. Okay, so let's zoom out for a second. Beyond all the specific legal tactics, the protocol is really proposing a much bigger technology-driven idea about how you could enforce accountability in the 21st century. It calls this concept LedgerLaw, and the idea is pretty straightforward. You take every single step of this legal process, the initial request, the notice that they've missed the deadline, the criminal referral, and you notarize it on a public blockchain, in this case Solana. What that does is create a permanent, unchangeable, and publicly verifiable timeline of everything that happened. It just strips away any chance of plausible deniability. And that leaves us with one last, pretty provocative question. If we set aside the specifics of this one protocol, what does this whole idea represent? Could this mashup of law and technology, using tools like the blockchain, genuinely create a new era of radical transparency? An era where our most powerful institutions just can't hide behind their shields anymore? It's a fascinating thought to end on.